Is this thing on?
Is that I taught the college and the high school pre-calculus. I was supposed to parallel Everett Community College's Math 141, 142. And the students that I was being forced to take on as pre-calculus students were in no way capable as juniors and seniors in high school with as little real preparation as they'd had to do a college level class. I basically told Everett Community College, the people who were my bosses at Everett Community College, I said, you need to audit this program because I'm telling you, I cannot parallel your class. And I can't fail all of my kids either. We've got to come to an understanding. But because I kept pressing Everett Community College to say, listen, this college and the high school program is not great. I mean, if we had elite students who were capable of doing college level work, but 95% of my kids aren't, and it's not fair to hold them to that standard because they haven't
Right.
been prepared for it. Anyway, I kept bugging my principal to not have this program in place. You've got to do better. We can't. I hate fraud, right? And I felt like it was perpetuating a fraud. And I just wanted to do the best for my kids, and trying to hold them to a college standard was
Mhm.
not it. Not in Marysville. Over in
Right.
Mukilteo, when I taught at Kamiak, because taught at Kamiak for 7 years,
Oh
and
yeah.
college and the high school was great there. But
Right.
those are kids who have been, like I said, expected to go to college since they were in kindergarten, and that's not the case in Marysville. And you really have to look at your demographics. And I got accused of having low standards, and I was like, no, actually, I have very high standards, but I have to have realistic standards, and they didn't
Right.
like that at all. And
Okay.
then they would expect that all the administrations that would say, well, you have to find a way to pass these kids. And I'm like, that's not fair to anybody. That's not fine.
Well,
You have
it's
to
not.
set realistic expectations. Anyway, that's a whole other thing with the school district, and why I'm not compatible with it, because I think there's a ton of fraud going on in our school districts.
Lots to unpack there too. So the next question I have is, how did you vote in the 2024 presidential election?
I voted for Jill Stein. I
Wow.
voted Green Party, voted for Jill Stein, and I want to say that I would have never voted for Kamala Harris because I was not going to vote for the administration that is perpetrating genocide.
Right.
Not going to happen. And that was a firm red line that I took. And all the indications was that those younger voters that dropped out have really been impacted by what they are seeing in Palestine right now, and also could not stomach voting for the administration that was gaslighting us day after day after day, telling us that genocide wasn't happening when we very well knew that it was, because we saw it happening on our screens every single day. And I think once you've seen a year of children being blown apart, I think that there's something that morally in our younger generation says, no, I don't have to participate in that. And my
Right.
firm belief is that a vote for Kamala Harris was an endorsement of continuing genocide.
Yeah, that war needs to stop. The colonial underhandedness needs to stop. I saw the recent headline about they're now moving people out of northern Gaza, and it's just like, oh, okay, so you're just showing us what we've been talking about the entire time. And I don't want to say we because I haven't been a vocal proponent, and I'm not going to get into why. The point is that, yeah, no, I hear. So the next question I have for you is, what are three feelings you have about the results of the 2024 presidential election?
Is sort of a resignation. All right, here we are. We got Trump again. I mean, he won fair and square. I mean, there's no doubt. I think it's almost kind of embarrassing to me to see Democrats saying, "Oh, well, it was rigged here and there, and we need to recount." And I'm like, it wasn't.
I am.
You guys got your asses handed to you. You've got to accept that. And if you think that it was stolen votes that put Donald Trump back in office, then you have not read the assignment.
That's right.
Oh.
That's right.
So one is a resignation. I do have some trepidation over things that I know are going to impact immigrant families, the LGBTQ community. And I want everybody to know that while I did not vote for the Democrat, I do not feel any responsibility for putting Trump in office because
Right.
somebody like myself tried to warn you for years and years and years. In fact, going back to when Biden was elected, I said one of the worst things that will happen about the Biden for the Biden is that in 2024 we're going to get Trump back again, or we could potentially get someone worse than Trump.
Right.
Because I knew back then, and I lost a lot of friends over it in 2020. I said the Biden administration is going to crash and burn hard. In my opinion, as they did. I feel like
Yeah.
Trump's reelection was written 4 years ago. And so there's trepidation, and having not voted for the Democrat, because a lot of the accusation is, well, if you don't vote for Kamala Harris, then you are throwing this community or that community under the bus. And I said, well, you don't know me for the last 35 years because I will fight hard regardless of who is in office. And I think the problem with the liberal class, those people who consider themselves good Democrats, is that they're willing to fight if Trump is in office, but they're not willing to fight that same fight when Democrats are in office. It was very much a thing like when Biden got elected, we joke about it on the left and say, well, the liberals just went back to brunch. That was it. That was their job. They put somebody in the office, and now they're not gonna do the accountability piece.
Right. Or do the
And
work.
the only accountability piece here is that if you don't stand up for the right policy, we're not going to reelect you. There is no other accountability other than you're not going to vote. I'm not going to vote
Right.
for you again. So
Right.
I don't feel badly for my own vote. I know a lot of Democrats would want me to feel badly, but the number showed, everybody who didn't vote for Kamala, if you added all of those up, it still wouldn't have been enough
Right.
to put her over the top.
Right.
I think this idea of strategic voting is ridiculous because it has gotten us to a place of absolute climate disaster and economic disaster. So I don't feel like putting Kamala Harris in office would have solved any of our problems, because I don't think Democrats necessarily want to solve our problems. They want to massage things around the edges, but they want to keep the fundamental structures in place. And that is what is not working for people. So the third thing is, and I think the liberals will lose their minds here, is I am a little bit hopeful with the Trump administration when it comes to some of our foreign policy, because Trump has said he has plans to end the war in Ukraine, which I think we absolutely need to end because we are so close. I don't think most people really know how close we are to nuclear war right now. It is closer than we have ever been. All of the analysts who are very serious about understanding how these foreign policy issues work say we are closer to nuclear war now than we have ever been, which is petrifying, because as soon as the nukes start flying, it's all over. You can't dial it back, and it's going to affect everybody. So I think a foreign policy of continuing this war in Ukraine is disastrous. And even the EU right now has admitted, yeah, Ukraine may have to give some territorial concessions in order to negotiate a ceasefire. I said that years ago. I said Ukraine's probably going to give up some territory. What people don't understand from a long historical concept is that the borders of Ukraine as they are now are essentially the borders that Vladimir Lenin drew in 1917 when Ukraine was incorporated into the Soviet Union. So when the Soviet Union collapsed, all those borders essentially stayed the same. A lot of the cultural and regional differences within those borders were not necessarily paid attention to with the creation of those borders, and should have been better paid attention to when the Soviet Union actually collapsed. But everybody said, okay, well, we've got these same borders in place, and
Let's just keep them. That's probably a lot of the justification of why Russia is pursuing so hard.
The biggest issue with Russia is Ukraine should not be part of NATO. And because if you have a NATO country that decides to put missiles within striking distance of Moscow, right on their border, they said, no, don't do this. That was one of their, and this is again the thing that frustrates me about the Democrats now and their foreign policy, is that the conflict in Ukraine could absolutely have been avoided. And the United States has been angling, people in both parties, it's a bipartisan thing, have been angling to conflict with Russia and Iran, by the way, for decades. It could have been avoided, and our foreign policy people did not want to avoid it. So again, going back to my feelings about Trump, I am hopeful that he will be a cooler head, as a lunatic as he is. And I don't want to say this as any support for Trump. I am hopeful that he will do something to stop these conflicts that are drawing us ever closer to nuclear war.
The next question is, what do you fear most about the next Trump presidency?
I'm very concerned about the immigrant communities. This whole idea of mass deportation. I really wish Biden had a stronger, more compassionate immigration policy, but Biden went hard right wing to appease Republicans on foreign policy.
Right.
And as soon as it switched to Kamala, she started talking about border policy and illegal immigrants, and then Iran. Iran is the biggest threat to the United States right now. And I'm like, man, you guys are just going, it's almost like we're listening to the Bush administration again on border policy and foreign policy.
Right.
So I'm very concerned with what's going to happen with our immigrant friends and family. And I'm committed to fight for them through the Trump administration also.
So the next question is, what do you hope most about the next Trump presidency? And you might have said this already.
I think I said that I really hope that Trump will be able to dialogue. And this is actually something that I am hopeful with Trump is that, and this is something that my boss, Jill Stein, said all the time, because she was accused of being a Putin puppet, which was absolutely ridiculous. It was a DNC charge as a smear. But obviously, for anybody who's got any sense, completely ridiculous. She never had a conversation with Vladimir Putin. But she did say, we should be talking with our adversaries. We should be dialoguing with our adversaries. And the reason nuclear conflict was avoided in 1961 around Cuba is that we did talk with our adversaries. John Kennedy and Nikita Khrushchev, they talked. They had dialogue. They came to some agreements. The Democratic Party Secretary of State, right? Blinken, they won't dialogue with Putin at all. And how do you resolve conflicts if you won't have a dialogue?
That's right.
So I am hopeful in that regard that Trump can at least have a conversation, as whatever Trump is that is distasteful, and he is very distasteful. I do hope that he will avoid nuclear conflict. And I am not at all confident that Biden or Harris would have. I don't trust the foreign policy of the Democratic Party whatsoever.
Great points. So the next question is, what do you believe about the people who voted opposite of you? And I'm really curious about your answer on this one.
Well, I would say not opposite of me, because what is opposite of the Green Party? Opposite of the Green Party would be anybody who voted blue or red, in my opinion.
That's right.
Because I have always said that the Democrat and the Republican Party, they are both pointed in the same direction. To a greater or lesser degree, depending upon which policy you want to talk about, they are both pointed in the direction. They are both tools of the ownership class. They are both opposed to the working class, as much as the Democrats might say, no, not at all. We want to, guys, you couldn't even raise the minimum wage. Are you kidding me? So don't tell me about what you want to do for the working class. You are into union busting. You are, here's another thing about Trump is that he has said that he is going to work on antitrust against giant companies like Microsoft and Google and communications companies. And I think we need something like that. If we can break up those companies and have actual competition in our media and our utility services, our communication services. So listen, I'm a socialist. I'm not a capitalist. In fact, I think capitalism is a curse. I think we should flush capitalism down the toilet. I don't think socialism has ever been given a real opportunity to thrive, because wherever it has taken a foothold, you have the forces of global capitalism who have been oppressing them and blinding. Just take Cuba. Right. So whatever you want to say about how authoritarian the Cuban system might be, at least they have a goal of providing housing and healthcare for everybody. And I think that they should be more democratic. But I believe that true socialism is democratic. But we have been extremely propagandized to think that it is authoritarian. I disagree. It just means if we all come to a collective understanding that the fruits of our labor should be distributed equally, like they should not be sucked up to the top 0.1% and hoarded and wealth be hoarded. If we can come to those kind of agreements that housing and healthcare and education are essentially universally guaranteed human rights. Now you're talking about socialism, that our society works for the social body for everybody, rather than working for capital, which is essentially a concentration of money and wealth.
I mean, part of the difference there is like a direct democracy versus a democratic republic, right? Which is what we currently have.
Well, and the other problem we have is that if we had publicly financed elections in this country, if we had like limits on campaign spending and
I love
You
all
know,
this, by the way. This is me. Hey,
yeah.
yeah, no, I
And
hear
you've
you.
got corporate money, and
Out
you've
of it.
got even public money, like you as an individual, like a wealthy individual writing
Sure.
a campaign
Million
check for
dollar check.
$3,300 or whatever it is. Like all of that's gone. You have a pool of money. You go out and you get your signatures because your community wants you to be part of this electoral process. You
Right.
get a pool of money. You have restrictions on how you can use it. Everybody is bound by the same rules.
Yep.
Then voting is fair, right?
Yeah.
Then you have actual democracy. We don't have democracy, and it pains me to think that people in this country think we do have democracy. We very much have an oligarchy. We like Noam Chomsky said, you have a lively discussion within very narrow parameters of what is possible. So I think we can do much better. And so I don't feel one way about people who didn't vote the same way I did. I don't have any animosity. Where I do have bad feelings is that people who are so tied to their political tribe, like I'm a Green Party member, but I'm not interested in the Green Party because of the Green Party. I'm interested in
Right.
the Green Party because of the policies that I know this party is fighting for. Whereas what my wake up call to the Democrats is they said these are the policies we're fighting for. But once you got inside the machine, they clearly were not. I think that's deceptive practice. And I think people who vote Democrat because, hey, I'm a good Democrat and I vote blue, those are blue MAGA in the same way that
Sure.
Trump
Sure.
devotees are red MAGA. I don't think that there's any difference. It's team sports. It's
Yep.
not paying attention to policy. It's also, I think, people who don't recognize how corrupted the Democratic Party are. I don't know if it's a matter of not being educated about it or not being willing to be educated about it.
Sure.
And I think not being educated about something requires education, and I'd be happy to help people be educated about these things. But
Sure.
when you see what happens and then you go, well, it's okay when our side does it. It's not okay when their side does it, but it's okay
Right.
when our side does it.
Right. Right.
Now I'm like, okay,
Right.
now I can't talk to you because
Right.
now you're a dishonest person. I think you're a
But
dishonest and corrupt person yourself. You're willing to give your people a pass, but you'll
yeah,
go after the. So that's the team sports aspect of what we've
I
got
hear
here
you.
in America. And all of it plays into the hands of the ownership class, which controls both parties and sucks all of your labor wealth right up to the top and into their stock portfolios.
Yeah. No, you're yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely right. The next question is, what is the worst thing about society to you?
That's a really tough question. I don't know. I want to have faith in people. I don't have a lot of faith in people. I guess it's the fact that the worst people tend to end up in positions of power. I think that's the thing that I don't like about society the most. And I was very clear. I do not think Rick Larson is a good person. When I ran against Rick Larson, I'd call him all sorts of names. I believe it 100%. I think he's a bad person. And a lot of people who know him, oh, but I've had lunch with him and I've talked with him. I'm like, well, people talk out of their asses all the time. Like, look at the
Right.
record. The record is not good. And I think if you're a good person, you don't have that kind of record.
Right.
So, well,
No, I agree. I hear you. And at the end of the day, I'm getting out of politics.
are you?
Oh yeah, much because when I got into politics as a tool for social justice, right? To make the world a better place and to infiltrate the system and change from within, right? But getting into it, a lot of the things you say, like I have been disillusioned by politics because of a lot of this stuff, right? I've also been disillusioned by social justice stuff, but that's a whole nother conversation. Not that we don't need a fair, equal society. It's just approaches. There's lots of different approaches. But my point is that the political system and the systems you're talking about are exactly what you're talking about. You know what I mean? And I've always maintained that, but I've had the strategic kind of what you also mentioned, right? The strategic approach of I gotta kind of play nice to get anywhere and stuff. And I've done that successfully by and large, but like at the end of the day, inside I'm still going against everything that all right. And I can't do that anymore. I'm 37 and I feel like I don't want to, I just don't feel my integrity. I feel my integrity slipping. And it's really difficult to do those mental gymnastics to be within your integrity if you're an integral person until there's a point when you can't. And it just takes a couple of those times when it's like, okay, I'm done with it. You know what I mean? And that's really where stuff. I hear you. I know there's a lot of things unsaid. I'm hearing it regardless. That's one of the reasons why I created this podcast, so that we can create some understanding about different perspectives, narratives, and hopefully create a unified society and a pathway towards a better world for all of us. So the last couple of questions is, what do you believe is one of the reasons that Trump and the largely Republic Congress was elected?
Well, I think we've talked about this. I mean, I think the Biden administration was a failure. I think it was baked into the cake as soon as he was elected. I tend to say that the only true thing that Biden said that he actually really meant was before he got elected, when he was behind closed doors with wealthy donors, and he said, look, nothing will fundamentally change. And he's right. Nothing fundamentally changed. And what really didn't change is that the climate downslide, the economic downslide, the healthcare downslide kept sliding down. And so one of my friends who was actually elected to the Virginia state legislature a couple of years ago, and then he passed actually one of the very first capping the prices on insulin in the entire country. Cap the price of insulin, that him in the state legislature. But he's a communist and an activist. And talking about the Democratic Party, there were two things that I said. Is the Democratic Party helping to make things better? And any objective analysis of the Democratic Party is like, no, they're not helping to make anything better. Okay, all right. So next question is, are they stopping things from getting worse? They're not stopping things from getting worse either. So if they're not helping things better and they're not stopping things from getting worse, they haven't earned your vote. And I think a lot of people took that perspective of the Democratic Party. They simply have not earned my vote. And that's why you had a massive drop in voting statistics of people who are just like, I'm not going to vote for the Republicans because they haven't earned my vote either. But I thought the Democrats were something that they weren't. For years, they have sold me on they are something that they are not. And I'm just not doing that anymore. I'm not doing that anymore. And then a lot of kids, the radical youth coming up today, and God knows it's hard enough to get young people to vote anyway, but there's no interest. There's no appeal. You guys are not doing anything for climate change. You're not doing anything for my housing. And just, again, perspective of my own kids. I don't feel like compelled to go to college because I don't want to come out of it with tons and tons and tons of student debt, which is virtually inevitable. Oh, you can do a work study. No, 30 years ago, you could do work study. You can't do work study.
Right. And live. You're kidding. You're kidding.
No. I think the Democratic Party is absolutely hollow. It's just been absolutely hollowed out by corporate interests. I think 50 years ago, the Democratic Party stood for something. I don't think they stand for anything anymore. And I think people feel that. And so that's what led to the Republicans winning more than anything. The Democrats are just not an opposition party, and people want an opposition party.
So the next question is, do you, and I think I know the answer to this, but do you feel like you did enough to affect the election in the way you wanted to see it go?
As a campaign manager for a presidential campaign, I spent 24/7 for the last 10 or 11 months. I got hired on in mid-January. And so from January through the election, almost 11 months there, it was nonstop. And I was on call 24/7 and absolutely exhausted and trying to keep a full-time job going at the same time, trying to have a life outside, but there's no life outside of that. So yeah, I think I did everything I can. If I was to look back on things I might have done differently along the campaign trail, that individual decisions that might have gone better, but in terms of me putting my all into it, yeah, absolutely, I did. And I'm burned out at the end of this. I'm just totally, people are asking me like, well, can you pick up, do you want to do campaign manager here? Okay. No, I need to take a break.
Yeah, no, and I hear you. Sending good vibes and healing vibes to you to recharge and rest, my brother. The last question I have for you is, what do you want to say to the version of you 4 years in the future?
Do you think moving out of the country was the right thing for you to do? I'm not even joking about that.
I know.
So
I know.
I am so worried about nuclear war right now, like the nuclear threat. And I graduated high school and spent the first year, my freshman year in college. I'm around what the years that the Soviet Union collapsed and the Berlin Wall came down were all my high school and freshman year of college. It all happened around 89, 90, 91. And I graduated in 89. And I think we all going through, because I remember listening to the radio and hearing stuff about the Soviet Union, 1983. And then there was that movie called The Day After, which was a movie about nuclear war. And that came out when I was in sixth grade. It petrified everybody. I mean, me and my classmates as middle schoolers were absolutely petrified of nuclear war. We saw a movie where stuff just got absolutely vaporized and people got vaporized. And we were like, oh my God, we're close to that. And I think that there was a collective sigh of relief when the Soviet Union collapsed and the Berlin Wall came down, that we said, sort of a thank God, we don't have nuclear war in our future. And I feel more scared about nuclear war now as a 53-year-old than I did as a seventh grader. I'm very much thinking that I need to move. I mean, here in the Pacific Northwest, we're top target. You and I right now, we are 30 miles away from one of the largest nuclear stockpiles in the entire world. We're a top target. And I don't know, I feel very worried that Biden continues to press Ukraine, which is really going to be the key to whether we go to war with Russia, actually go to war with Russia. But the same thing with Iran, because I think a lot of what's happening with Israel, Palestine is to goad Iran. I mean, Israel has committed war crimes inside of Iran, and we have helped them. And this is where I say, I think Russia and Iran have showed actual remarkable restraint at this point, because they don't want to go to nuclear war. And if Iran gets drawn into a war, they have a mutual defense pact with Russia. You pull Iran into something, you are automatically pulling Russia in. And I think it's absolute madness. What would I give to not have nuclear war? Anything. Name your price. Name your price. I don't care. No nuclear war. Nuclear war ends us all. So anyway, point being, we're in a very hot spot as far as a target here in the Pacific Northwest. And I am very much thinking that I need to get out of here, and I need to take my kids out of here to be somewhere safer, somewhere that isn't a hotspot target. And some people will look at that and they will say, oh, that's crazy. It's not. But I've studied this stuff for 35 years, and I've been an anti-war activist, and I pay attention to what's going on. And when all the top people that I pay attention to say we are dangerously close right now, I'm like, I'm listening to them.
Well,
it's not a fun thing to end up on.
Don't even matter. It ain't even about fun. And that's part of the reality that people need to be woken up, because I'm almost a little bit frustrated, and I'm going to like myself a little bit here. But yeah, despite criticisms of the class of people the working class who voted for Trump, sat out, whatever, despite the criticisms of that, they are literally just trying to survive out here. And a lot of us are literally just trying to survive out here. And when the people who are making decisions are not doing things for the best interests of all, those concerns are, I mean, you should be concerned, and you should be going crazy by the shit, but you got to collect yourself a little bit. And so, yeah, no, you're right. And I appreciate you for your perspective, your knowledge, and your experience, because people need to hear this stuff.
I appreciate it. Yeah, the one thing you can count on me to do is to tell you the truth as I see it.
That's something that should be at the base of everybody's ethos. Just be honest. Just be honest with yourself. Be honest with other people. With that being said, we are all different, but we are all also the same. What matters is we recognize that and move forward to make a better world for all of us. Thank you, Jason. Future conversations for sure.
Thanks, Lewis. Get in touch anytime. Appreciate it.